Hello friends, and welcome back to another Sunday special. As you know, in these videos, what I do is I go through the markets. I talk about upcoming setups, ideas, things going on in the markets for the week ahead. Today, the day you'll be seeing this is Sunday. I'm filming this on Saturday just because I have some things planned for the weekend, but I wanted to get this out to you guys. So we've got a lot to talk about because this upcoming week is actually fairly busy. Now, before I show you all the charts and talk about setups, let me just show you some big news that you may want to be on the lookout for. So this week we have the US and Japan deciding on monetary policy, which could be a big market mover, while minutes from the central banks in Australia and India will also be in the spotlight. Other important releases to follow include US and China industrial output and retail sales, which is a big one, Canada and UK inflation, also important, and Japan's trade balance and inflation. Oh, and also Australia employment figures. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff coming out this next week. So I expect it to be probably a pretty moving week. Now, this last week was actually fairly like low tide, fairly calm in the markets until the end of the week where we saw the dollar do this crazy move to the upside. Now, I'll give you guys my best explanation. Frank and I talked about it in the office this week, and I think our best judgment on what happened with the dollar is that although inflation is a concern, there were forecasts that came out that were sort of like, hey, it's not going to get too much worse from here, or at least that was the idea. Now, remember that inflation is printing of money. It is the losing of the value of a currency over time. And so that what it basically causes the monetary power of the dollar to go down when there is high inflation. Well, if there is less inflation than concerned about, right? If inflation projected going forward is not so bad, it could be bullish for the dollar because all currencies, or for the most part, most currencies involve some sort of inflation rather than deflation, which is when your currency goes up over time, which is actually not great for economies. But anyways, with the dollar this week, I think that there are going to be some great setups to think about both technically and fundamentally. For me, I am still bearish on the dollar. This news does not sort of materialize the idea until we start to see numbers that change directions. We start to see the Fed changing their narrative. I am pretty much bearish on the US dollar. So coming into this next week, I have spotted some setups already that I am thinking about taking on the US dollar going into this next week. I do like the idea of potentially selling this rally up in this zone here at 90.6 and maybe even watching for, if I'm wrong about that, maybe looking for another opportunity to try and do so again up at 90.9. Now, before I go any further, I do want to make you guys aware we are doing a 40% off sale. If you are looking to see all of the trades that I take in real time, we talk about trade ideas and etc., but the trades that I actually take in real time get sent out to a Discord group for members. We have a private Discord where there's tons of traders from around the world. We've got chat rooms. We do live coaching webinars, all that sort of stuff. And it is currently 40% off. You can find out more information if you are interested in that down below in the description. There's also a promo code, like I said, to get that 40% off. So don't miss it. We don't do it too often. Before I keep going, I just also want to remind you some of the things that I'm going to be looking at today in this video are DXY. I'm going to try and look at some of the US dollar crosses, especially some of the ones that are going to be in the news this week. So let's keep going. So there's the dollar. Overall, I think it's still bearish. I think there's opportunities for selling. Just my view, though. Let's move along. We'll take a look at EURUSD, see what's going on with the euro this week. So the euro, I don't know if you guys, you may have been in my streams this week. I talked about this one bullish setup on the euro. Now, I ended up not taking it, but we talked about this scenario here, this great big push to the upside. I said there might be some continuation here, chopped around, and when it broke, I said I like the idea of a pullback here. Now, I didn't take it. Now, I would have loved to have taken it because it probably would have been a nice little trade there. There was some nice upswing before this massive sell-off, but I just wanted to point that out that, the thing is right now with the euro, it's very choppy. It's very back and forth and indecisive. And we ended out the week doing exactly the opposite. So I thought we would continue rallying towards the end of the week, but that is not what happens or not what happened. And sometimes you were just flat out wrong. So with that said, with the euro, it did come down a lot harder than I expected this week. It is tagging some support. And the question is going into this next week is, are we going to find some support here, or are things just going to get more ugly for the euro? And again, what that relies on is, again, that DXY, that US dollar, what's going on with it? And are things going to look better going into this week? Now, I mentioned also that the Fed has a meeting this week, which could be a big mover for price. I'm not exactly sure. Usually they're on Wednesdays. Let's check just to just to clarify when that's going to happen. So if I go to next week, because I'm on a Saturday today, usually it's on Wednesday. Yeah, so it's on Wednesday at 2 p.m. FOMC statement. So this is what I'm talking about. So that could have high impact for the dollar. We also have core retail sales on Tuesday, which is also a very big one. So the US dollar is going to be in the spotlight yet again this week. So let's definitely keep an eye on that. But with the euro dollar, however, I am still bullish on this thing until we start to see, like I said, until we see a true change for the US dollar, until it's really truly bullish. I'm really more interested in looking to buy something like the euro and short the dollar. So for me right now, what that means is maybe we get opportunities to look at areas like this and like this. 1.2 has been on my mind for a little while. I've been thinking about it, been dreaming about it, but maybe we'll actually see it in real life pretty soon. So if that happens, I might be interested in taking some longs on the euro dollar. What about the pound dollar here? Pound dollar stuck in a range here. We've watched this thing, I've made the same commentary for a few weeks now. It's basically, watching for this thing to break one way or the other. I think that if it does break down, you may get some short-term runs. You may see some sellers pick up steam, but I do ultimately love the idea of 1.4. A simple trade scenario that I would be interested in is something like this, where I'd be risking, I don't know, maybe say 50 pips, 45 pips, somewhere in that range to try and just get to the back of this range. Now, I don't usually put targets on my trades. Usually what I will do is trail my stops. So if price were to come down here, for example, let's say it chops down and makes its way, we get some strength for the dollar that pushes the pound dollar lower, maybe I look to go long here. And if it starts moving, I can see myself trailing stops to break even, locking in profits, watching structure, using structure again to trail my stops, etc. That is usually how I like to trade. You guys might have seen some of those in action when I show you guys my live trading videos here on the channel. So if you haven't seen those, definitely check them out. But yeah, so watching for that on the pound dollar is that potential, break to the upside is another situation I like. We've watched and talked about that for a while. If we can finally get maybe next week something that is bearish for the dollar that pushes us past resistance here, I'm loving the idea of a break and retest going along. And sometimes I get the question, well, Nick, why are you buying up there? Shouldn't you be like shorting when it's high up here? And the idea is, although it looks high, a lot of times trends can look high and just keep going, right? All this time, if you had said this looks high, you would have missed out on some beautiful uptrend moves. And I'm not really willing to not be a bull on the pound dollar until I see true signs that the US dollar looks straight up bullish to me. So right now, still stuck in that downtrend, and I'm more interested on shorting the dollar and buying the pound. So that's what I'm looking at for now. And remember, whenever we're talking about a currency pair, you're talking about one against the other. So you have to be ready to short one and buy the other. Okay, so that's the pound dollar. I like that both scenarios. I've been in the same, sort of boat for a while now, basically saying if it breaks and retests, I love that setup. And if it breaks to the downside, gets me a nice discount, I'm also interested in trying for some buys down in that area. Key emphasis on try, because I can absolutely be wrong, and that is why we put stops on our trades. So yeah, so let's keep moving along. We'll take a look at XAUUSD. We'll take a look at gold here, which was a very interesting one. Although most of the markets were pretty choppy this week, gold wasn't necessarily like directional, like it didn't go up or down all week, but it definitely like switched directions midweek and then started doing the opposite. So we saw, we saw the start of the week be a little crazy, saw some spikes to the upside there, and then we saw a give back the other way. So really gold was pretty indecisive, but it really was high volatility this week. Let's look really quick. I want to look at the COT reports. So I'm going to head over to the website, a1trading.com. You guys feel free to use this anytime you want, completely for free. I just put it on here for convenience. We'll go to gold really quick, and let's check this out. So let's look at gold. We'll take off the non-reportables and the commercial positions, and let's see what's been going on with gold. So this is interesting. So the most recent data here on gold tells us not a whole lot. We've seen recently there was some accumulation from big traders who bought into gold, and since then we've sort of been flat except slightly negative. Now, if anything, that doesn't tell me that, oh, they're absolutely selling this thing, they're getting rid of it. There has been a little bit of profit taking or selling, it seems like, but I will say that this is probably not like decisive enough movements until you get something like this that really shows like a big increase or decrease in demand. I'm more interested in just waiting on this thing. So right now with gold, I would say probably passively long biased on this. I wouldn't be looking for just anything to buy. During this time, it was like anything that was pulling back, I'd be interested in buying. But during this time, it's more, well, if the big traders are sort of paused on accumulating, I'm just going to also pause for now. So with that said, with gold, I'll reiterate what I said on stream this week, which was essentially, I like the idea of a deeper retracement. I would still like the idea to get long on gold, but I'd like to do so at a discounted rate. Maybe back here when the big traders were buying in, right? The accumulators were accumulating. I'd be more interested in trying to get involved back there. So a price like that may be a little bit more interesting to me and maybe to some more bigger traders out there looking for buys on gold. So 1825, I have my eye on that. I also have my eye right on 1800. Nice round number there. Got some support here. And of course, the one that I am most interested in trying for would be that 61.8. So again, 1770 also in mind. Yeah, so it's kind of a far ways away, but you guys know how gold can be. Sometimes gold just absolutely will do something like this in just a few days, maybe even just a week, right? So it can be kind of crazy. So definitely watching for a pullback. If it happens, I think it is probably due for a pullback. You've been putting in these lower highs, a little structural weakness there for the time being. But the other thing I'm going to say is that if things get super bearish for the dollar next week, then watch out because it could do something like this too. So, I think for me, the best action, you say, well, Nick, you're talking all these different ideas, but what's the actual thing you would do? For me, the thing I would actually do is I'd be looking for a trade setup if and only if we get some pullbacks, right? So a deeper pullback, now I'm interested. If it starts to trend higher, I'll reevaluate going forward. But I think my most interested position right here would be a pullback to maybe a 38.2 and the 61.8. Now, of course, if I take a trade, I will share that inside of our private Discord with everybody inside of the membership group. So, that's where I'll ultimately, if I make a decision, I do like a full write-up. I'll show you like what we just did this week on the pound Swiss was a trade that I took this week. Ended up trailing it nicely and took some profit there on Friday. So I basically, I take my trade. I talk about why, here's, for example, here's what happened. I talk about my fundamental reasoning. I'm bullish on the pound and their rapid vaccine rollout and overall outpacing economy, and definitely was more interested in buying the pound and shorting the Swiss franc. Where their central bank has been calling for currency intervention, meaning they're looking to devalue their own currency for trade war advantages, basically printing money. So I've been bullish on the pound Swiss. Technical reasoning, I like the bottom of this range, took the trade, and sure enough, it shot off that bottom, was able to trail some stops, and caught a nice move there. So again, you can see my full journal inside of the private group. You can also see Frank's, Patrick's, and all sorts of stuff. The weekly forecast that we do, the live webinars that we do with Joe Barreca. He shares coaching calls where he will answer questions and work with members, etc. Also chat rooms and everything else that you get inside of the Discord. It's pretty awesome. We've got a whole team of people that work to make this possible. It's not just me and co. There's like a full team of people that, moderate and work really hard to make this the best place for Forex traders. So if you're new to trading, if you're experienced trading, whatever, if you're just looking for a community, check it out down below in the description with that 40% off promo code there, and you can get access for a discounted rate. Okay, so that's pretty much everything I have for gold. Let's see, what else can we get into? So we talked about the pound dollar, the euro dollar, and gold. What about dollar yen? Dollar yen was interesting. We saw a pretty sharp increase in price this week as, again, we got some dollar positive ideas coming out with that. Maybe inflation's not as big of a problem as we thought. There may be some trade setups on the lower time frames. Looking here at the 1 hour chart, you've got something that looks like a pretty decent area of support. Though I think probably a reasonable area to consider longer term would be a swing back up to the top of here. Again, with that dollar positive sentiment, if it's really going to continue, if the dollar positive sentiment really kind of keeps us going here, we would naturally probably want to see price return to places like this. Now, this big sell-off, if you can remember, was the unemployment numbers that we got the week before. So we had a really steep sell-off on the dollar there on unemployment numbers. We actually saw a pretty good increase on the yen at that time. So since then, the yen is pretty much maintained weakness. And And so for me, I'm pretty bearish on the yen. So if anything, if I was looking at dollar yen, I'd be looking to probably go long. However, it's not my favorite currency because you guys already know I've been talking about dollar weakness. So not my favorite currency pair. If I was trading the yen, I like something like pound yen a lot. If there was a pullback, and actually it looks like we did get a pullback. Let's look at the 4-hour view. We'll take the moving average off for just a moment. So here's something interesting about the pound yen. Kind of looks a lot like gold right now in the sense that you've got this thing that is flying high, right? You've got some really positive, bullish stuff going on, but then we've sort of paused. We've sort of started to put in these lower highs, right? You've got this structure to the downside that's looking like sellers have got their turn to take. Now, very similar to what I said about gold. I'd love the idea of a pullback here, but let me look. What does the COT report look like for the pound? I'd like to just do a quick analysis of the pound on the COTs. Okay, so it's maintaining kind of just this flat back and forth, some buying, some selling. So not a huge like one-way directional bias on the pound just yet. What about the yen? So with the yen seems like it's starting to get a little bit of a bid. It seems like we got a bid on Friday, which is actually really interesting. We're seeing some increase in buying on the yen. So yeah, so what that tells me is like when I'm looking at the pound yen, I'm just going to be a little bit cautious on trying to run here into the long side because again, we know right now, recently, there's been a little bit of a buying going on the yen. So if I'm looking at the yen, I probably just want to be a little bit cautious. I'm still not the biggest, I'm not a bull on the yen or anything like that until we see something change dramatically in the world that makes me more risk off sentiment, meaning wanting to buy safer investments rather than things that can yield. So again, pound yen, I'd love the idea similar to gold. I'd like to see next week. Can we get something like this? Can we get a deeper retracement? I've got an alert set you can see already at that 38.2. I'd be interested in trying out that 38.2. And when I say try, what I mean is literally try. Like I could see myself buying this and putting a stop loss and saying, maybe we're going to be right about this. And that'd be great. Or what I mean by try, sometimes I try and it fails. So and that's the thing. Whenever you put a stop loss, you should be prepared and okay if it does get hit. Because I know a lot of times people will do this. They'll say, okay, it's going to come down here. I'm going to buy it. And then I'll put a stop loss here. And then price starts to come down and they say, well, I don't want to get stopped out because I think it's going to reverse. So I'll just move my stop loss down here. And then price does one of these and you say, okay, well, I just want to, I think it'll hold here. So I've got to hold, you guys see what I'm saying, right? And then it keeps going and eventually knocks you out for a huge loss. So, definitely want to be avoiding that personally. So as it does pull back, if it does, deeper retracement, I'd be interested in trying at 38.2 to see if I can catch a buy there. If price does want to continue to trend higher, I still like the uptrend. I still think that it has enough momentum to probably find buyers. Should we dip back a little bit? And the pound honestly looks more attractive to me than the yen still for the time being. What about pound Swiss? Now, like I said, this is a trade setup that I took last week. I guess I'm not logged into my broker on this computer, but I did take a buy trade at the bottom of this range. Things went really, really well. And I ended up, like I said, trailing out of that trade right around here. So I stopped out for a profit. So pretty short-term trade. Now that I'm looking at it, it was like, I jumped into the trade and almost immediately was in profit, which is a great feeling. Honestly, I wish it happened every single time, but it didn't, or it doesn't. I basically got in like right around here and then trailed out right. It might have been this candle. I can't remember if it was that candle or that candle, but I ended up trailing out and still taking a nice profit there. That trade video, by the way, will be coming out on YouTube, so you can watch the full thing. I think it'll be out sometime this week. We'll see, or coming up week. But anyways, what else can we look at? Maybe the AUDUSD. So we'll take a look at the Aussie. The Aussie has been very stuck in a range recently, just like some of the other dollar crosses. This thing has just been so choppy. And I've mentioned on stream that the biggest thing that I see for the Aussie is, if we can see some bullish rally, you guys know I'm like I said, bearish on the dollar. So I'm looking for something like this. I'm looking for breaks, retests, and continuations. I've taken some trades in here and they have not been so good to me. So I've taken a couple losses trying to trade the Aussie dollar in this range. So I'm not going to rush to do that anymore. I'm going to be patient on this. I'd really like to see price start to get going before I try and jump in and ride the train, because it's a bit frustrating. Like I'll tell you guys straight up, whenever I'm taking losses, I can't keep quiet about my wins or my losses here on YouTube. That's what I do. That's on the channel. I share my experience. So I've been taking some losses in here, and honestly, I probably should have stepped away and not been so stubborn, because I took 3 trades in here, and all 3 were negative trades. So I'm staying on the sidelines for this. It's not Aussie dollar's fault. It's me, not you, kind of thing. We're having a breakup right now. But if things straighten out with the Aussie dollar, I'd definitely be interested in jumping back in. So, waiting to see that move to the upside. If it happens, I'm definitely looking to get long. I like the idea still of 0.8 by the end of the year. We'll see if I'm right about that. And we will go from there. What about New Zealand dollar? Very similar story, kind of choppy here, and a big picture idea for me is 74.5 on this chart by the end of the year. Same kind of concept. I think that the New Zealand is still attractive. We've seen some dips, and there honestly might be some opportunities to pick up some there, in my opinion. Now, again, still in a choppy spot, so I'm not going to rush to do that on this chart, but there may be some other ones. What about New Zealand yen? So I'm interested in buying the New Zealand yen. In fact, it's giving me some discounts here, and next week this one is definitely on my radar, because of the fact that the New Zealand dollar itself is very attractive in the sense that their central bank has talked about raising rates. There's some of I think September of 2022 has been the rumor, and that rumor is something that I'm interested in buying. If you've ever heard the concept, buy the rumor, sell the news, right? That concept is like age old in markets. It's this idea that the rumor itself is actually more powerful than the news that comes out. So that idea of, hey, they're probably going to raise rates sooner than a lot of the other places, could be a positive catalyst for the New Zealand. At least that's what I'm thinking. And I think it has the potential to continue this upward trend. Now, again, we talked about the fact that the yen is getting a bid right now. So I'd be picky on my entries, but I might be interested in picking up some New Zealand yen should that come into play. So I love the idea of New Zealand yen, especially with that sell-off towards the end of the week. Definitely interested in looking to try and find a bottom of the overall uptrend here. Look at the daily chart. You can see it's very clean, nice upward trend. You get the moving averages on there. Looks really good. So that's something interesting to me. Before I go, guys, I do want to remind you guys, we're doing that 40% off gold membership. If I take any trades this week, which I am very much likely going to do, there's been some great opportunities there on Friday, and I held off until Sunday and Monday to try and get in, just because I didn't want to hold things over the weekend if I could avoid it. Definitely jump in on that 40% off membership opportunity. It is down below in the description. There's a promo code, and you can join us there. Jump in the chat, say hello to everybody, and start trading with us. So thank you guys very much for being here. I hope you enjoyed the Sunday special here. If you did enjoy, make sure to smash that like button down below and subscribe to the channel. I've seen in my analytics that a lot of you guys don't actually subscribe to the channel, so it's free to do, and it really does help us out. If you wouldn't mind smashing that subscribe button, and we will see you back in the next